Question 1. Surplus lines insurance claims process. Which of the following is a key responsibility of a surplus lines broker in the claims handling process in Florida? A. Setting the reserves for the claim. B. Ensuring the claim is filed within the statutory period. C. Negotiating the final settlement amount directly with the claimant. D. Verifying the surplus lines insurer is eligible and compliant with state regulations. Answer: D. Verifying the surplus lines insurer is eligible and compliant with state regulations. Explanation: in Florida, a surplus lines broker has several critical responsibilities in the claims handling process. One of the primary duties is to ensure that the surplus lines insurer is eligible and compliant with state regulations. Florida statutes, section 626.913, 626.937. This includes verifying that the insurer is authorized to provide surplus lines coverage and maintaining proper documentation for regulatory compliance. Setting reserves and negotiating settlements are typically the responsibilities of the claims adjuster, not the broker. Ensuring the claim is filed within the statutory period falls under the duties of the insured or their representative. Question 2. Surplus lines insurance policy analysis in Florida. How should an exclusion clause in a surplus lines insurance policy be interpreted if there is ambiguity in the language? A. In favor of the insurer. B. In favor of the insured. C. According to the broker's interpretation. D. According to the claims adjuster's interpretation. Answer: B. In favor of the insured. Explanation: under Florida law, if there is ambiguity in the language of an exclusion clause in a surplus lines insurance policy, it must be interpreted in favor of the insured. Florida Supreme Court precedent. This principle is rooted in the doctrine of contra pro forentum, which dictates that any ambiguous terms in a contract should be construed against the party that drafted the contract, in this case, the insurer. This ensures that the insured is not unfairly disadvantaged by unclear policy language. Question 3. Surplus lines insurance claims investigation. Mr. Thompson filed a claim under his surplus lines insurance policy after his business suffered significant property damage due to a hurricane. The insurance adjuster, upon reviewing the claim, determines that the damage may also be attributable to poor maintenance, which is excluded under the policy. What should Mr. Thompson do to strengthen his position in this claims dispute? A. Request an independent appraisal and provide maintenance records. B. File a lawsuit against the surplus lines insurer immediately. C. Accept the adjuster's determination and close the claim. D. Ignore the adjuster's findings and resubmit the claim. Answer: A. Request an independent appraisal and provide maintenance records. Explanation: in this scenario, Mr. Thompson should request an independent appraisal to provide an unbiased evaluation of the damage. Additionally, submitting maintenance records can help demonstrate that the property was properly maintained and that the damage was primarily due to the hurricane, not neglect. This approach aligns with best practices in claims investigation and can provide compelling evidence to support Mr. Thompson's claim. Filing a lawsuit should be considered only as a last resort after exhausting all other dispute resolution methods. Ignoring the adjuster's findings or resubmitting the claim without additional evidence is unlikely to be effective and does not address the core issue raised by the adjuster. Question 4. Surplus lines insurance claims evaluation. In Florida, which method is most commonly used to determine the extent and value of a surplus lines insurance claim for business interruption? A. Market value of the property at the time of loss. B. Replacement cost of the damaged property. C. Actual loss sustained during the interruption period. D. Depreciated value of the property at the time of loss. Answer: C. Actual loss sustained during the interruption period. Explanation: for business interruption claims under surplus lines insurance in Florida, the most commonly used method to determine the extent and value of the claim is the actual loss sustained during the interruption period. This involves calculating the income the business would have earned had the loss not occurred, based on historical financial records and projections, and comparing it to the actual income earned during the period of interruption. Replacement cost and market value are typically used for physical property damage claims, while depreciated value might be considered for certain types of property but not for business interruption. Question 5. Surplus lines insurance claims litigation. When managing litigation expenses for a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, which of the following practices is most effective? A. Allowing the insured to choose any attorney regardless of cost. B. Closely monitoring legal bills and requiring detailed itemizations. C. Settling all disputes out of court to avoid litigation costs. D. Limiting the number of depositions and discovery requests. Answer: B. Closely monitoring legal bills and requiring detailed itemizations. Explanation: in Florida, managing litigation expenses for a surplus lines insurance claim effectively involves closely monitoring legal bills and requiring detailed itemizations. This practice ensures that all legal work is necessary and appropriately billed, preventing excessive or unnecessary charges. Allowing the insured to choose any attorney without considering cost can lead to inflated expenses. While settling disputes out of court may sometimes be cost-effective, it is not always possible or advisable. Limiting the number of depositions and discovery requests arbitrarily can hinder the defense or prosecution of the claim and should be based on strategic legal considerations. Question 6. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. Scenario-based. Ms. Rodriguez is negotiating a settlement for a claim under her surplus lines insurance policy after her warehouse was damaged by a fire. The insurer offers a settlement that Ms. Rodriguez believes is too low. What should Ms. Rodriguez do to improve her negotiating position? A. Immediately accept the offer to avoid further delays. B. Hire a public adjuster to represent her interests. C. Threaten to file a complaint with the Florida Department of Financial Services. D. Reject the offer and refuse further communication with the insurer. Answer: B. Hire a public adjuster to represent her interests. Explanation: in this scenario, Ms. Rodriguez should hire a public adjuster to represent her interests. Public adjusters are experienced in evaluating insurance claims and can provide a professional assessment that may support a higher settlement amount. They can negotiate with the insurer on Ms. Rodriguez's behalf to achieve a fair resolution. Immediately accepting a low offer is not advisable if it does not cover the full extent of the loss. While filing a complaint with the Florida Department of Financial Services can be a step if there are regulatory concerns, it is not the most effective first response in a negotiation. Rejecting the offer and refusing further communication can stall the settlement process and is counterproductive. Question 7. Surplus lines insurance claims investigation. Which of the following best describes the role of an outside expert in the claims investigation process for a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida? A. To determine the final settlement amount. B. To provide specialized knowledge and analysis. C. To act as a mediator between the insured and the insurer. D. To ensure compliance with all state regulations. Answer: B. To provide specialized knowledge and analysis. Explanation: in Florida, the role of an outside expert in the claims investigation process for a surplus lines insurance claim is to provide specialized knowledge and analysis that might not be available within the insurance company's in-house team. This can include expertise in fields such as engineering, forensics, or accounting, which is essential for accurately assessing complex claims. Determining the final settlement amount is typically the role of the claims adjuster, not the outside expert. Acting as a mediator or ensuring compliance with state regulations is not the primary function of outside experts, although their findings can inform regulatory compliance and negotiation processes. Question 8. Surplus lines insurance policy analysis. In interpreting a surplus lines insurance policy in Florida, which of the following principles applies if a term is not defined within the policy? A. The term should be interpreted according to industry standards. B. The term should be interpreted in favor of the insurer. C. The term should be given its plain and ordinary meaning. D. The term should be disregarded as ambiguous. Answer: C. The term should be given its plain and ordinary meaning. Explanation: under Florida law, if a term in a surplus lines insurance policy is not defined within the policy, it should be given its plain and ordinary meaning. Courts typically look at how an average person would understand the term, ensuring clarity and fairness. Interpreting the term according to industry standards or in favor of the insurer may not accurately reflect the insured's understanding. Disregarding the term as ambiguous without first attempting to assign it a plain and ordinary meaning could lead to misinterpretation and is not the correct legal approach. Question 9. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. Scenario-based. Mr. Davis has received an initial settlement offer for his surplus lines insurance claim following a flood that damaged his retail store in Florida. He believes the offer is insufficient to cover his losses. What is the most appropriate action for Mr. Davis to take? A. Accept the initial offer to expedite the process. B. Provide additional documentation and evidence to support a higher claim amount. C. File a complaint with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners (NAIC). D. Seek coverage under a different policy. Answer: B. Provide additional documentation and evidence to support a higher claim amount. Explanation: in this scenario, Mr. Davis should provide additional documentation and evidence to support a higher claim amount. This may include receipts, repair estimates, financial records, and expert assessments that clearly demonstrate the extent of his losses. This approach can strengthen his negotiating position and potentially lead to a more favorable settlement. Accepting the initial offer prematurely could result in inadequate compensation. Filing a complaint with the NAIC is not the most immediate or effective step in this situation, and seeking coverage under a different policy is not feasible once the loss has occurred and the claim has been filed under the existing policy. Question 10. Surplus lines insurance claims process. In Florida, which of the following actions is required to comply with regulatory requirements when handling a surplus lines insurance claim? A. Reporting the claim to the Florida Office of Insurance Regulation within 30 days. B. Ensuring all policy premiums are paid before processing the claim. C. Keeping thorough documentation of all communications and actions taken. D. Settling the claim within 90 days of the loss occurring. Answer: C. Keeping thorough documentation of all communications and actions taken. Explanation: in Florida, maintaining thorough documentation of all communications and actions taken during the handling of a surplus lines insurance claim is crucial for regulatory compliance. This includes recording phone calls, emails, reports, and any other interactions related to the claim. Proper documentation helps ensure transparency and accountability, which are essential for adhering to Florida's regulatory requirements. Florida statutes, Section 626.916, 626.937. Reporting timelines and settlement periods can vary, but detailed documentation is a consistent requirement across all claims. Question 11. Surplus lines insurance claims investigation. During a surplus lines insurance claims investigation in Florida, what is the best practice when interviewing witnesses? A. Conducting all interviews in the presence of legal counsel. B. Recording the interviews without informing the witnesses. C. Asking open-ended questions to gather comprehensive information. D. Limiting the interview to 15 minutes to ensure efficiency. Answer: C. Asking open-ended questions to gather comprehensive information. Explanation: when conducting interviews as part of a surplus lines insurance claims investigation in Florida, it is best practice to ask open-ended questions. This approach allows witnesses to provide detailed and comprehensive information, which can be crucial for accurately assessing the claim. Conducting interviews in the presence of legal counsel is not always necessary unless there are legal implications. Recording interviews without informing witnesses may violate legal or ethical standards. Limiting the interview to 15 minutes may hinder the collection of important information, making it less effective. Question 12. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism. Scenario-based. MS. Nguyen, a surplus lines claims adjuster in Florida, discovers a potential conflict of interest because her brother owns a company that could be used as a vendor for repairing the insured property. What should MS. Nguyen do in this situation to adhere to ethical standards? A. Disclose the conflict of interest to her supervisor and recuse herself from the decision. B. Proceed with using her brother's company but ensure the work is of high quality. C. Ignore the conflict since it does not directly affect the claim outcome. D. Recommend her brother's company is the best choice due to familiarity. Answer: A. Disclose the conflict of interest to her supervisor and recuse herself from the decision. Explanation: in this scenario, MS. Nguyen should disclose the conflict of interest to her supervisor and recuse herself from any decisions related to selecting the vendor for repairing the insured property. Ethical standards in claims handling require transparency and impartiality to maintain trust and integrity in the process. Proceeding with her brother's company without addressing the conflict could lead to questions of bias and fairness. Ignoring the conflict or recommending her brother's company compromises the ethical standards expected of a claims adjuster. Recusal ensures that all actions taken are above reproach and maintain the integrity of the claims process. Question 13. Regulatory compliance in surplus lines claims handling. Which of the following is a key compliance requirement for surplus lines insurers operating in Florida? A. They must maintain reserves equivalent to 200% of their annual premiums. B. They must be listed on the Florida Surplus Lines Service Office ASO quarterly listing. C. They must submit all policy forms for approval by the Florida Department of Financial Services. D. They must limit their policies to commercial risks only. Answer: B. They must be listed on the Florida Surplus Lines Service Office ASO quarterly listing. Explanation: in Florida, surplus lines insurers must be listed on the Florida Surplus Lines Service Office FLSO quarterly listing to ensure they are recognized and authorized to operate within the state. This listing is crucial for maintaining regulatory compliance. While maintaining adequate reserves is important, the specific requirement is not necessarily 200% of annual premiums and varies by insurer and state regulations. Policy forms for surplus lines insurers are not typically submitted for approval by the Florida Department of Financial Services, unlike admitted insurers. Surplus lines insurers are not limited to commercial risks only and can provide coverage for various types of risks. Question 14. Surplus lines insurance claims evaluation. When evaluating the extent of a loss under a surplus lines insurance policy in Florida, what method is most appropriate for assessing the value of damaged personal property? A. Market value at the time of the loss. B. Replacement cost less depreciation. C. The lowest value listed in the policy schedule. D. The original purchase price. Answer: B. Replacement cost less depreciation. Explanation: in Florida, when evaluating the extent of a loss under a surplus lines insurance policy for damaged personal property, the most appropriate method is typically the replacement cost less depreciation. This method considers the cost to replace the damaged item with a new one of similar kind and quality, adjusted for depreciation to account for the item's age and condition at the time of loss. Market value and the original purchase price do not necessarily reflect the current value or the cost to replace the item. The lowest value listed in the policy schedule may not accurately represent the item's value either. Question 15. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. Scenario-based. Mr. Anderson, whose home in Florida was damaged by a rare tornado, files a claim under his surplus lines insurance policy. The insurer disputes the claim, citing an exclusion for windstorm damage. However, the policy language is ambiguous. What should Mr. Anderson do to maximize his chances of a favorable settlement? A. Immediately accept the insurer's decision and seek coverage elsewhere. B. Hire an attorney to challenge the exclusion clause. C. File a complaint with the Florida Office of Insurance Regulation. D. Gather evidence and request a review by an independent adjuster. Answer: D. Gather evidence and request a review by an independent adjuster. Explanation: in this scenario, Mr. Anderson should gather evidence and request a review by an independent adjuster. This approach allows for an impartial assessment of the damage and the policy terms. Given that the policy language is ambiguous, an independent adjuster's evaluation can provide critical support for Mr. Anderson's claim. Hiring an attorney might be a subsequent step if the dispute cannot be resolved through other means. Filing a complaint with the Florida Office of Insurance Regulation could be part of the process but should follow after attempting to resolve the issue directly with the insurer. Accepting the insurer's decision without challenge is not advisable if Mr. Anderson believes the exclusion clause is being misapplied. Question 16. Surplus lines insurance policy analysis. When analyzing a surplus lines insurance policy in Florida, which of the following best describes how exclusions should be handled if they are not clearly communicated to the insured? A. They should be interpreted strictly against the insurer. B. They should be applied as written, regardless of clarity. C. They should be interpreted based on industry standards. D. They should be ignored and the claim should be paid in full. Answer: A. They should be interpreted strictly against the insurer. Explanation: under Florida law, exclusions in a surplus lines insurance policy must be clearly communicated to the insured. If there is any ambiguity or lack of clarity in the exclusions, they should be interpreted strictly against the insurer and in favor of coverage for the insured. This principle is consistent with the doctrine of contra proferentum, which dictates that any ambiguity in a contract should be construed against the party that drafted it. This ensures that insured parties are not unfairly disadvantaged by unclear policy language. Question 17. Surplus lines insurance claims investigation. In the context of surplus lines insurance claims in Florida, what is the primary purpose of conducting a detailed site inspection after loss? A. To estimate the cost of repairs using market prices. B. To verify the cause and extent of the damage. C. To negotiate settlement terms with contractors. D. To assess the insured's financial situation. Answer: B. To verify the cause and extent of the damage. Explanation: the primary purpose of conducting a detailed site inspection after loss in the context of surplus lines insurance claims in Florida is to verify the cause and extent of the damage. This step is crucial for accurately assessing the validity of the claim and determining the appropriate amount of compensation, estimating repair costs, negotiating with contractors, and assessing the insured's financial situation may follow, but they are not the main objectives of the site inspection. The inspection helps ensure that the claim is substantiated and that any potential fraud or misrepresentation is identified. Question 18. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism. Scenario-based. Mr. Campbell, a claims adjuster for a surplus lines insurer in Florida, is handling a complex claim involving significant property damage. During the investigation, he discovers that the insured, Ms. White, has unintentionally omitted relevant information about prior damage to the property. What should Mr. Campbell do to maintain ethical standards and professional conduct? A. Deny the claim based on the omission. B. Ignore the omission since it was unintentional. C. Inform Ms. White of the omission and request the missing information. D. Reduce the settlement amount to account for the omission. Answer: C. Inform Ms. White of the omission and request the missing information. Explanation: to maintain ethical standards and professional conduct, Mr. Campbell should inform Ms. White of the omission and request the missing information. Ethical claims handling requires transparency and honesty, ensuring that all relevant facts are considered before making a decision on the claim. Denying the claim based solely on the omission without seeking clarification would be premature and potentially unfair. Ignoring the omission is not advisable as it could affect the validity of the claim. Reducing the settlement amount without fully understanding the context of the omission would also be inappropriate. By requesting the missing information, Mr. Campbell upholds ethical standards and ensures a thorough and fair investigation. Question 19. Surplus lines insurance claim settlement. Which of the following is a critical step in ensuring compliance with regulatory requirements during the settlement of a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida? A. Offering a settlement based on the insured's initial demand. B. Obtaining a written release from the insured before any payment. C. Ensuring the settlement amount is within the policy limits. D. Reporting the settlement to the Florida Department of Financial Services. Answer: C. Ensuring the settlement amount is within the policy limits. Explanation: ensuring the settlement amount is within the policy limits is a critical step in complying with regulatory requirements during the settlement of a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida. This ensures that the insurer adheres to the terms of the policy and avoids overpayment, which could have financial and regulatory repercussions. While obtaining a written release from the insured is important for finalizing the settlement, it does not directly relate to regulatory compliance. Offering a settlement based on the insured's initial demand without proper evaluation could result in non-compliance if the demand exceeds policy limits or is not justified. Reporting the settlement to the Florida Department of Financial Services is not typically required for individual claims but may be necessary for certain types of claims or under specific circumstances. Question 20. Surplus lines insurance policy analysis. In the context of surplus lines insurance policies in Florida, which principle should be applied when interpreting ambiguous policy language regarding coverage exclusions? A. The language should be interpreted in favor of the insurer. B. The language should be interpreted in favor of the insured. C. The language should be interpreted based on industry standards. D. The language should be disregarded as void. Answer: B. The language should be interpreted in favor of the insured. Explanation: when interpreting ambiguous policy language regarding coverage exclusions in Florida, the principle that should be applied is to interpret the language in favor of the insured. This is based on the doctrine of contra pro forentum, which dictates that any ambiguity in an insurance contract should be construed against the insurer who drafted the policy and in favor of coverage for the insured. This principle ensures fairness and protects the insured from unclear or ambiguous policy terms. Interpreting the language in favor of the insurer or based solely on industry standards can disadvantage the insured and is not aligned with this legal principle. Disregarding the language as void is not a typical or appropriate response to ambiguity in policy terms. Question 21. Surplus lines insurance claims investigation scenario-based (MS). Martinez, a business owner in Florida, files a claim under her surplus lines insurance policy after a major storm causes extensive damage to her property. The insurer sends an adjuster who suspects some of the damage predated the storm. What should MS. Martinez do to support her claim? A. Demand immediate payment from the insurer. B. Provide maintenance records and photographs showing the property condition before the storm. C. Threaten legal action against the insurer to expedite the process. D. Accept a reduced settlement offer to close the claim quickly. Answer. B. Provide maintenance records and photographs showing the property condition before the storm. Explanation. To support her claim, MS. Martinez should provide maintenance records and photographs showing the property condition before the storm. This evidence can help establish that the damage was indeed caused by the storm and not by pre-existing conditions, thereby substantiating her claim. Demanding immediate payment or threatening legal action without supporting evidence is unlikely to be effective and could damage her relationship with the insurer. Accepting a reduced settlement offer without adequately addressing the adjuster's concerns may result in insufficient compensation for her losses. Providing thorough documentation is the best approach to ensure a fair and accurate claims process. Question 22. Surplus lines insurance claims process. In Florida, what is a key responsibility of a surplus lines claims adjuster during the initial phase of the claims handling process? A. Determining the final settlement amount immediately. B. Establishing a clear line of communication with all parties involved. C. Limiting the investigation to the information provided by the insured. D. Delaying the claim until all documentation is perfect. Answer. B. Establishing a clear line of communication with all parties involved. Explanation. During the initial phase of the claims handling process, a key responsibility of a surplus lines claims adjuster in Florida is to establish a clear line of communication with all parties involved. Effective communication ensures that the claims process proceeds smoothly, with all stakeholders informed about the necessary steps, documentation requirements, and timelines. This helps prevent misunderstandings and ensures that the adjuster can gather all relevant information efficiently. Determining the final settlement amount immediately is premature, and limiting the investigation to the insured's information or delaying the claim unnecessarily can lead to inefficiencies and potential regulatory issues. Question 23. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. In Florida, what is the significance of a proof of loss document in the settlement of a surplus lines insurance claim? A. It guarantees immediate payment of the claim. B. It is a sworn statement by the insured detailing the loss and supporting documentation. C. It allows the insurer to deny the claim without further investigation. D. It replaces the need for any further communication between the insured and the insurer. Answer. B. It is a sworn statement by the insured detailing the loss and supporting documentation. Explanation. A proof of loss document is a sworn statement by the insured detailing the loss and providing supporting documentation. In Florida, this document is significant because it formalizes the insured's claim, allowing the insurer to verify the details and assess the validity of the claim. It is a critical step in the claims process, but it does not guarantee immediate payment or allow the insurer to deny the claim without further investigation. Additionally, it does not eliminate the need for further communication between the insured and the insurer. Instead, it helps to clarify and substantiate the claim, facilitating an informed settlement process. Question 24. Surplus lines insurance claims evaluation scenario-based. Mr. Turner, a property owner in Florida, files a claim under his surplus lines insurance policy after his warehouse suffers significant fire damage. The insurer disputes the extent of the damage. What should Mr. Turner do to strengthen his case for a higher settlement? A. Accept the insurer's initial assessment and move on. B. Seek an independent appraisal of the damage. C. File a lawsuit against the insurer immediately. D. Stop communicating with the insurer to force a better offer. Answer. B. Seek an independent appraisal of the damage. Explanation. To strengthen his case for a higher settlement, Mr. Turner should seek an independent appraisal of the damage. An independent appraisal provides an objective evaluation of the extent and cost of the damage, which can be used to support his claim and potentially challenge the insurer's initial assessment. Accepting the insurer's initial assessment without question may result in inadequate compensation. Filing a lawsuit should be considered only after other dispute resolution methods have been exhausted. Stopping communication with the insurer is counterproductive and can hinder the claims process. An independent appraisal is a proactive step that can help ensure a fair and accurate settlement. Question 25. Surplus lines insurance claims litigation. In Florida, what role does the statute of limitations play in surplus lines insurance claims litigation? A. It determines the maximum amount an insured can claim in damages. B. Establishes the time limit for filing a lawsuit after a claim is denied. C. It dictates the minimum liability coverage required for surplus lines insurers. D. It outlines the procedures for alternative dispute resolution methods. Answer. B. It establishes the time limit for filing a lawsuit after a claim is denied. Explanation. In surplus lines insurance claims litigation in Florida, the statute of limitations establishes the time limit within which an insured must file a lawsuit after their claim has been denied. This time frame varies depending on the type of claim and is crucial for ensuring that legal actions are initiated in a timely manner. Failure to adhere to the statute of limitations can result in the loss of the right to pursue legal remedies for the claim. The statute of limitations does not determine the maximum amount of damages or dictate minimum liability coverage for insurers, nor does it outline procedures for alternative dispute resolution methods. Question 26. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism. What ethical considerations should a surplus lines claims adjuster prioritize when handling a claim involving multiple parties in Florida? A. Confidentiality and privacy of all parties involved. B. Providing preferential treatment to long-standing clients. C. Speeding up the claims process to minimize expenses. D. Maximizing profits for the insurance company. Answer. A. Confidentiality and privacy of all parties involved. Explanation. When handling a surplus lines insurance claim involving multiple parties in Florida, a claims adjuster should prioritize the confidentiality and privacy of all parties involved. This ethical consideration is essential for maintaining trust and protecting sensitive information during the claims process. Providing preferential treatment to certain clients, speeding up the claims process, or maximizing profits for the insurance company may compromise ethical standards and fairness in claims handling. Prioritizing confidentiality and privacy demonstrates professionalism and integrity in managing complex claims situations. Question 27. Surplus lines insurance claims investigation scenario-based. MS. Parker, a claims adjuster in Florida, is investigating a surplus lines insurance claim for water damage to a commercial property. During the inspection, she discovers evidence of prior water damage that was not disclosed by the insured. What should MS. Parker do to address this discrepancy? A. Report the insured for insurance fraud immediately. B. Deny the claim based on the non-disclosure of prior damage. C. Request further documentation and clarification from the insured. D. Ignore the discrepancy and process the claim as usual. Answer. C. Request further documentation and clarification from the insured. Explanation. In this scenario, MS. Parker should request further documentation and clarification from the insured regarding the prior water damage. It's essential to gather all relevant information before making a decision on the claim. Reporting the insured for insurance fraud without sufficient evidence could be premature and damaging. Denying the claim solely based on the non-disclosure of prior damage may not be justified without fully investigating the circumstances. Ignoring the discrepancy and processing the claim as usual could lead to inaccuracies and unfair outcomes. Requesting further documentation allows MS. Parker to conduct a thorough investigation and make an informed decision based on all available evidence. Question 28. Regulatory compliance in surplus lines claims handling. What is a crucial aspect of regulatory compliance for surplus lines insurance claims handling in Florida? A. Offering settlements above policy limits to ensure customer satisfaction. B. Adhering to fair claims practices and consumer protection laws. C. Delaying claim processing to avoid immediate financial payouts. D. Providing minimal communication with insured parties to streamline the process. Answer: B. Adhering to fair claims practices and consumer protection laws. Explanation: in Florida, adhering to fair claims practices and consumer protection laws is a crucial aspect of regulatory compliance for surplus lines insurance claims handling. These laws are designed to ensure that insurers treat policyholders fairly and act in good faith throughout the claims process. This includes handling claims promptly, accurately, and fairly, providing clear and transparent communication, and avoiding any deceptive practices. Offering settlements above policy limits may violate regulatory requirements and expose insurers to legal and financial risks. Delaying claim processing and providing minimal communication are also inconsistent with regulatory expectations and can lead to regulatory penalties. Question 29. Surplus lines insurance claims evaluation. When evaluating liability in a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, what factor is most important for determining coverage? A. The insured's financial history and credit score. B. The presence of exclusions in the insurance policy. C. Whether the claim falls within the policy period. D. The negligent actions or omissions of the insured. Answer: D. The negligent actions or omissions of the insured. Explanation: in a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, the most important factor for determining coverage and liability is often the negligent actions or omissions of the insured. Insurance coverage is typically triggered when the insured is found to be legally liable for causing the loss or damage covered by the policy. Therefore, the adjuster must assess whether the insured's actions or failures to act led to the claimed loss. While the presence of exclusions in the policy and the policy period are relevant considerations, they do not directly determine coverage. Similarly, the insured's financial history and credit score are generally not primary factors in assessing liability under a surplus lines insurance policy. Question 30. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement scenario-based. MS Johnson, an insured in Florida, has filed a surplus lines insurance claim for property damage. The insurer offers a settlement amount lower than expected. What should MS Johnson do next to negotiate a fair settlement? A. Accept the offer to avoid further delays and inconvenience. B. File a complaint with the insurer's regulatory authority. C. Provide additional documentation and evidence to support her claim. D. Hire a private investigator to gather evidence against the insurer. Answer: C. Provide additional documentation and evidence to support her claim. Explanation: to negotiate a fair settlement for her surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, MS Johnson should provide additional documentation and evidence to support her claim. This may include repair estimates, photographs, receipts, or any other relevant information that can help substantiate the extent of her property damage and the associated costs. Providing additional documentation strengthens her position in negotiations and increases the likelihood of a favorable outcome. Filing a complaint with the insurer's regulatory authority or hiring a private investigator should be considered only if there are concerns about bad faith or fraudulent practices by the insurer, and these steps may not directly contribute to the negotiation process. Accepting the initial offer prematurely may result in inadequate compensation for MS Johnson's losses. Question 31. Surplus lines insurance claims investigation. In Florida, what is the primary purpose of conducting witness interviews during a surplus lines insurance claims investigation? A. To establish liability for the claim. B. To gather evidence to support the insured's claim. C. To obtain information about the insured's financial status. D. To collect information about the circumstances of the loss. Answer: D. To collect information about the circumstances of the loss. Explanation: the primary purpose of conducting witness interviews during a surplus lines insurance claims investigation in Florida is to collect information about the circumstances of the loss. Witnesses can provide valuable insights into what happened leading up to and during the event that resulted in the insurance claim. This information helps the claims adjuster understand the nature and extent of the loss, verify the insured's account of the events, and assess the validity of the claim. While witness statements may contribute to establishing liability or supporting the insured's claim, their main function is to provide factual information about the loss. Question 32. Surplus lines insurance claim settlement. What is the significance of a reservation of rights letter in surplus lines insurance claim settlement in Florida? A. It guarantees payment of the claim by the insurer. B. It waives the insurer's right to contest coverage later. C. It informs the insured that coverage may be disputed. D. It releases the insured from all future liability claims. Answer: C. It informs the insured that coverage may be disputed. Explanation: a reservation of rights letter in surplus lines insurance claims settlement in Florida informs the insured that coverage for the claim may be disputed by the insurer. This letter is significant because it ensures that the insured is aware of the potential issues surrounding coverage and does not interpret the insurer's actions as an unconditional acceptance of liability. By issuing a reservation of rights letter, the insurer preserves its right to contest coverage at a later date if additional information or evidence emerges that could affect coverage determinations. This helps prevent misunderstandings and preserves the insurer's ability to defend its interests. Question 33. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism scenario-based. Mr. Thompson, the surplus lines claims adjuster in Florida, receives conflicting information regarding the cause of a fire loss from different parties involved in the claim. What ethical principle should guide Mr. Thompson's actions in this situation? A. Disclose the conflicting information to both parties. B. Selectively share information to favor the insurer's position. C. Withhold information to expedite the claims process. D. Make a unilateral decision based on his own judgment. Answer: A. Disclose the conflicting information to both parties. Explanation: in this scenario, the ethical principle that should guide Mr. Thompson's actions is to disclose the conflicting information to both parties. Transparency and honesty are fundamental ethical principles in claims handling, and all parties involved in the claim have the right to be informed about relevant information that could impact the outcome of the claim. By disclosing the conflicting information, Mr. Thompson ensures that both the insurer and the insured have an opportunity to address any discrepancies and provide additional clarification or evidence if necessary. Selectively sharing information, withholding information, or making unilateral decisions based on personal judgment are not ethical practices and could compromise the integrity of the claims process. Question 34. Surplus lines insurance claims evaluation. When evaluating coverage under a surplus lines insurance policy in Florida, what is the significance of the other insurance clause? It determines the priority of coverage when multiple insurance policies apply. B. It limits the insurer's liability to a specific dollar amount. C. It exempts certain perils from coverage under the policy. D. It outlines the process for filing a claim with the insurer. Answer: A. It determines the priority of coverage when multiple insurance policies apply. Explanation: in Florida, the other insurance clause in a surplus lines insurance policy determines the priority of coverage when multiple insurance policies apply to the same loss or claim. This clause specifies how the insurer's liability is coordinated with other insurance policies that may provide coverage for the same risk. It helps avoid duplication of coverage and ensures that each insurer contributes proportionally to the settlement of the claim based on their policy terms and limits. While the other insurance clause may impact the overall coverage available, it does not typically limit the insurer's liability to a specific dollar amount, exempt perils from coverage, or dictate the claims filing process. Question 35. Surplus lines insurance claims litigation in Florida. What legal principle governs the burden of proof in surplus lines insurance claims litigation? A. Preponderance of the evidence. B. Beyond a reasonable doubt. C. Clear and convincing evidence. D. Prima facie case. Answer: A. Preponderance of the evidence. Explanation: in surplus lines insurance claims litigation in Florida, the legal principle that governs the burden of proof is the preponderance of the evidence. This means that the party bringing the claim, plaintiff, must prove that their version of events is more likely true than not true. It is a lower standard of proof compared to beyond a reasonable doubt, which is typically used in criminal cases. Clear and convincing evidence is a higher standard of proof often required in certain civil cases involving significant consequences, but it is not the standard for surplus lines insurance claims litigation. Prima facie case refers to the initial evidence needed to support a claim, but it does not specifically address the burden of proof. Question 36. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism scenario-based. MS Rodriguez, a surplus lines claims adjuster in Florida, receives a claim from a policyholder whose property was damaged in a hurricane. The insured submits photos of the damage, but MS Rodriguez suspects that some of the damage may have existed before the hurricane. What should MS Rodriguez do to uphold ethical standards? A. Reject the claim based on the suspicion of pre-existing damage. B. Investigate further to determine the extent of the hurricane-related damage. C. Accept the claim without further investigation to expedite the process. D. Request an independent appraisal to assess the cause of the damage. Answer. B. Investigate further to determine the extent of the hurricane-related damage. Explanation. To uphold ethical standards, MS Rodriguez should investigate further to determine the extent of the hurricane-related damage. It is essential to conduct a thorough and fair assessment of the claim before making a decision. Rejecting the claim based solely on suspicion, without sufficient evidence, could be unfair to the insured and may constitute bad faith. Accepting the claim without further investigation could result in improper payment and potential fraud. Requesting an independent appraisal or additional documentation allows MS Rodriguez to gather more information to make an informed decision about the claim. This approach demonstrates professionalism and integrity in claims handling. Question 37. Surplus lines insurance claims process. During the claims handling process for surplus lines insurance in Florida, what is the role of the Florida Surplus Lines Service Office LO? A. Issuing surplus lines insurance policies to policyholders. B. Regulating the conduct of surplus lines insurance agents. C. Maintaining records of surplus lines insurers and facilitating the collection of surplus lines taxes. D. Adjudicating disputes between insureds and surplus lines insurers. Answer. C. Maintaining records of surplus lines insurers and facilitating the collection of surplus lines taxes. Explanation. In Florida, the Florida Surplus Lines Service Office FLSA plays a crucial role in maintaining records of surplus lines insurers and facilitating the collection of surplus lines taxes. FSLSO serves as a resource for surplus lines agents and insurers by providing information about eligible surplus lines insurers and assisting with compliance-related matters. While FSLSO oversees certain aspects of surplus lines insurance regulation, such as licensing and reporting requirements, it does not issue insurance policies directly to policyholders, regulate surplus lines agents' conduct, or adjudicate disputes between insureds and insurers. Question 38. Surplus lines insurance policy analysis. In surplus lines insurance policies in Florida, what is typically the purpose of a concurrency of coverage clause? A. To specify the geographic areas where coverage applies. B. To establish the effective date of coverage. C. To coordinate coverage with other insurance policies. D. To define the types of perils covered under the policy. Answer. C. To coordinate coverage with other insurance policies. Explanation. A concurrency of coverage clause in surplus lines insurance policies in Florida typically serves to coordinate coverage with other insurance policies. This clause addresses how coverage under the surplus lines policy interacts with coverage provided by other insurance policies that may apply to the same loss or claim. It helps avoid overlapping coverage or gaps in coverage by establishing the order of priority or the extent of coordination between policies. While other clauses may specify the effective date of coverage, the geographic areas covered, or the types of perils covered, the concurrency of coverage clause specifically addresses coordination with other insurance. Question 39. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism scenario-based. Mr. Dyers, the surplus lines claims adjuster in Florida, receives a claim from a policyholder for water damage to their property. During the investigation, Mr. Dyers discovers evidence suggesting that the damage was caused by the insured's negligence. What ethical responsibility does Mr. Dyers have in this situation? A. Deny the claim based on the insured's negligence to minimize the insurer's liability. B. Withhold the evidence from the insured to avoid complicating the claims process. C. Communicate the findings to the insured and fairly assess the claim based on the evidence. D. Ignore the evidence and process the claim as usual to avoid confrontation with the insured. Answer. C. Communicate the findings to the insured and fairly assess the claim based on the evidence. Explanation. In this situation, Mr. Dyers' ethical responsibility is to communicate the findings to the insured and fairly assess the claim based on the evidence. Transparency and honesty are essential principles in claims handling, and the insured has the right to be informed about relevant information that could impact the outcome of the claim. Mr. Dyers should conduct a thorough investigation, communicate his findings to the insured, and assess the claim objectively based on the evidence. Denying the claim without proper evaluation or withholding evidence would not uphold ethical standards and could lead to legal and reputational consequences for the insurer. Similarly, ignoring the evidence to avoid confrontation is not an ethical or professional approach to claims handling. Question 40. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. In Florida, what is the purpose of a reservation of rights letter in the settlement of surplus lines insurance claims? A. To waive the insurer's right to contest coverage later. B. To notify the insured of an immediate denial of the claim. C. To preserve the insurer's rights while investigating coverage issues. D. To expedite the claims settlement process for the insured. Answer. C. To preserve the insurer's rights while investigating coverage issues. Explanation. A reservation of rights letter in surplus lines insurance claims settlement in Florida serves to preserve the insurer's rights while investigating coverage issues. This letter informs the insured that the insurer is investigating the claim but reserves the right to contest coverage if it is determined that the claim falls outside the scope of the policy. By issuing a reservation of rights letter, the insurer ensures that it does not waive its rights to contest coverage later, even if it provides interim benefits or begins the claims investigation process. This helps protect the insurer from potential coverage disputes and legal challenges. Question 41. Surplus lines insurance claims litigation. In surplus lines insurance claims litigation in Florida, what is the significance of the choice of law provision in the insurance policy? A. It determines the jurisdiction where the lawsuit must be filed. B. It establishes the statute of limitations for filing a lawsuit. C. It specifies which states' laws govern the interpretation of the policy. D. It outlines the procedures for alternative dispute resolution methods. Answer. C. It specifies which states' laws govern the interpretation of the policy. Explanation. The choice of law provision in a surplus lines insurance policy in Florida specifies which states' laws govern the interpretation of the policy. This provision determines the legal framework under which disputes arising from the policy will be resolved, including issues related to coverage, exclusions, and claims handling procedures. By designating a particular state's laws, the choice of law provision provides clarity and predictability in interpreting the rights and obligations of the parties under the policy. It helps avoid conflicts of law and ensures consistency in the application of legal principles to surplus lines insurance claims litigation. Question 42. Surplus lines insurance claims evaluation scenario-based. Mr. Thompson, a surplus lines claims adjuster in Florida, is evaluating a claim for property damage caused by a fire. The insured submits documentation supporting the value of the damaged property. However, Mr. Thompson suspects that the insured has inflated the value of the property. What should Mr. Thompson do in this situation? A. Reject the claim outright due to suspected fraud. B. Conduct a thorough investigation to verify the value of the damaged property. C. Accept the insured's valuation without further inquiry to expedite the claims process. D. Consult with the insurer's legal department to pursue legal action against the insured. Answer. B. Conduct a thorough investigation to verify the value of the damaged property. Explanation. In this situation, Mr. Thompson should conduct a thorough investigation to verify the value of the damaged property before making a decision on the claim. Suspecting that the insured has inflated the value of the property warrants further inquiry to ensure the accuracy and fairness of the claim's settlement. Rejecting the claim outright without sufficient evidence of fraud may be premature and could expose the insurer to legal risks. Accepting the insured's valuation without further inquiry could result in overpayment and potential financial losses for the insurer. Consulting with the insurer's legal department should be considered only after completing a comprehensive investigation and gathering evidence to support any allegations of fraud. Conducting a thorough investigation demonstrates diligence and professionalism in claims handling. Question 43. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism. In Florida, what ethical considerations should surplus lines claims adjusters prioritize when handling claims involving insureds with limited English proficiency? A. Ensuring that communication is conducted primarily through written correspondence. B. Providing translation services or interpreters to facilitate effective communication. C. Ignoring language barriers and proceeding with the claims process as usual. D. Refusing to handle claims from insureds with limited English proficiency. Answer. B. Providing translation services or interpreters to facilitate effective communication explanation. When handling claims involving insureds with limited English proficiency in Florida surplus lines, claims adjusters should prioritize providing translation services or interpreters to facilitate effective communication. Ensuring the insureds understand the claims process, their rights, and the information provided by the insurer is crucial for fair and transparent claims handling. Providing translation services or interpreters helps bridge the language barrier and allows insureds to fully participate in the claims process. Ignoring language barriers or refusing to handle claims from insureds with limited English proficiency would be discriminatory and could lead to regulatory sanctions or legal consequences. Question 44. Surplus lines insurance claims investigation. In Florida, what role does the insurer's duty of good faith and fair dealing play in surplus lines insurance claims investigations? A. It requires the insured to disclose all relevant information promptly. B. It obligates the insurer to promptly and thoroughly investigate claims. C. It allows the insurer to delay claim processing to gather more evidence. D. It permits the insurer to deny valid claims based on technicalities. Answer: B. It obligates the insurer to promptly and thoroughly investigate claims. Explanation: in Florida, the insurer's duty of good faith and fair dealing obligates the insurer to promptly and thoroughly investigate surplus lines insurance claims. This duty requires insurers to handle claims fairly, honestly, and without unreasonable delay. Insurers must conduct investigations in good faith, gather all relevant information, and assess claims objectively based on the policy terms and applicable law. Failing to fulfill this duty may constitute bad faith, leading to legal liability and potential punitive damages. While insureds are also expected to cooperate and disclose relevant information, the primary responsibility for conducting a fair and thorough investigation rests with the insurer. Question 45. Surplus lines insurance claims evaluation scenario-based. MS. Garcia, a surplus lines claims adjuster in Florida, is evaluating a claim for property damage caused by a severe storm. The insured submits estimates for repair costs from multiple contractors, which vary significantly. What should MS. Garcia do to assess the reasonableness of the repair estimates? A. Accept the lowest repair estimate to minimize claim costs. B. Average the repair estimates to determine a fair settlement amount. C. Request additional documentation or clarification from the insured and the contractors. D. Reject all repair estimates and hire an independent appraiser. Answer: C. Request additional documentation or clarification from the insured and the contractors. Explanation: to assess the reasonableness of repair estimates for property damage claims caused by a severe storm in Florida, MS. Garcia should request additional documentation or clarification from the insured and the contractors. Significant variations in repair estimates may indicate discrepancies or differences in scope, materials, or labor costs. By seeking additional information, MS. Garcia can ensure that the repair estimates accurately reflect the necessary repairs to restore the property to its pre-loss condition. Accepting the lowest estimate without further inquiry may result in inadequate repairs, while averaging the estimates could lead to an unfair settlement amount. Rejecting all estimates without investigation would delay the claims process unnecessarily. Requesting additional documentation or clarification allows MS. Garcia to make an informed decision based on the evidence provided. Question 46. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. In Florida, what is the primary purpose of establishing a claims reserve in surplus lines insurance claims settlement? A. To ensure that the insured receives immediate payment for the claim. B. To allocate funds for legal expenses associated with the claim. C. To set aside funds to cover anticipated claim costs and liabilities. D. To maximize the insurer's profits by minimizing claim payouts. Answer: C. To set aside funds to cover anticipated claim costs and liabilities. Explanation: the primary purpose of establishing a claims reserve in surplus lines insurance claims settlement in Florida is to set aside funds to cover anticipated claim costs and liabilities. By establishing a reserve, insurers ensure that they have sufficient funds available to fulfill their obligations to policyholders and cover potential claim payments. This helps maintain financial stability and ensures that claims can be settled promptly and fairly. While reserves may impact the insurer's financial statements and profitability, their primary function is to support effective claims management and fulfill contractual obligations to insureds. Question 47. Surplus lines insurance claims evaluation. When evaluating coverage for a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, what role does the doctrine of reasonable expectations play? A. It determines the priority of coverage when multiple insurance policies apply. B. It clarifies the responsibilities of the insured and insurer in the claims process. C. It governs the interpretation of ambiguous policy language in favor of the insured. D. It limits coverage to perils explicitly listed in the insurance policy. Answer: C. It governs the interpretation of ambiguous policy language in favor of the insured. Explanation: in Florida, the doctrine of reasonable expectations governs the interpretation of ambiguous policy language in surplus lines insurance claims in favor of the insured. This doctrine recognizes that policyholders may reasonably expect coverage for certain risks based on the language of the policy, even if the language is not explicitly clear. When policy language is ambiguous or susceptible to multiple interpretations, courts will interpret the policy in a manner that aligns with the insured's reasonable expectations. This principle helps ensure that policyholders receive the coverage they reasonably anticipated when purchasing the insurance policy. While the doctrine of reasonable expectations may impact coverage interpretation, it does not determine the priority of coverage or specify the responsibilities of the insured and insurer in the claims process. Question 48. Surplus lines insurance claims litigation scenario-based. Mr. Rivero, a surplus lines claims adjuster in Florida, receives notice of a lawsuit filed by an insured against the insurer for alleged bad faith in claims handling. What steps should Mr. Rivera take to respond to the lawsuit? A. Ignore the lawsuit, as surplus lines insurers are exempt from bad faith claims. B. Immediately settle the claim to avoid further legal expenses. C. Retain legal counsel to represent the insurer's interests and respond to the lawsuit. D. Counterclaim against the insured for filing a frivolous lawsuit. Answer: C. Retain legal counsel to represent the insurer's interests and respond to the lawsuit. Explanation: when faced with a lawsuit alleging bad faith in claims handling, Mr. Rivera should retain legal counsel to represent the insurer's interests and respond to the lawsuit. Surplus lines insurers in Florida are not exempt from bad faith claims, and failure to respond to a lawsuit could result in adverse legal consequences. Legal counsel can assess the merits of the lawsuit, develop a strategic defense, and advocate for the insurer's interests in court. Selling the claim immediately without legal counsel's guidance may not be in the insurer's best interests and could set a precedent for future claims. Counterclaiming against the insured without sufficient grounds could further escalate the dispute and should be considered only after careful legal analysis. Retaining legal counsel ensures that the insurer's rights are protected and that the lawsuit is addressed in accordance with applicable laws and regulations. Question 49. Surplus lines insurance claims investigation. In Florida, what factors should surplus lines claims adjusters consider when determining the extent of damage in a property insurance claim? A. The insured's history of filing previous claims. B. The presence of pre-existing damage to the property. C. The insurance policy's coverage limitations and exclusions. D. The insured's financial status and ability to pay the deductible. Answer: B. The presence of pre-existing damage to the property. Explanation: when determining the extent of damage in a property insurance claim in Florida, surplus lines claims adjusters should consider the presence of pre-existing damage to the property. Pre-existing damage refers to any damage or conditions that existed prior to the covered loss and may affect the scope and valuation of the claim. By assessing the property's condition before and after the loss event, adjusters can accurately determine the extent of damage covered by the insurance policy. While the insured's claims history and financial status may be relevant to the claims process, they are not primary factors in assessing the extent of damage. Understanding the policy's coverage limitations and exclusions is important for evaluating coverage, but does not directly impact the assessment of damage. Question 50. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. In Florida, what is the purpose of subrogation in surplus lines insurance claims settlement? A. To transfer the insured's rights and interests in the claim to the insurer. B. To recover claim payments from responsible third parties or insurers. C. To release the insured from any liability related to the claim. D. To expedite the settlement process and avoid litigation. Answer: B. To recover claim payments from responsible third parties or insurers. Explanation. In surplus lines insurance claims settlement in Florida, the purpose of subrogation is to recover claim payments from responsible third parties or insurers. Subrogation allows the insurer to step into the insured's shoes and pursue legal action against parties who may be liable for causing the insured's loss. By recovering claim payments through subrogation, insurers can mitigate their losses and potentially reduce insurance premiums for policyholders. Subrogation does not transfer the insured's rights and interests to the insurer, release the insured from liability, or expedite the settlement process. Instead, it serves as a mechanism for insurers to recover funds expended on behalf of policyholders. Question 51. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism scenario-based. MS. Chen, a surplus lines claims adjuster in Florida, receives a claim for water damage to commercial property. During the investigation, MS. Chen discovers evidence suggesting that the insured misrepresented the cause of the damage to maximize the claim payout. What ethical obligation does MS. Chen have in this situation? A. Conceal the evidence to avoid complicating the claims process. B. Adjust the claim payout to compensate for the insured's misrepresentation. C. Communicate the findings to the insured and address the misrepresentation. D. Deny the claim based on the insured's misrepresentation. Answer. C. Communicate the findings to the insured and address the misrepresentation. Explanation. In this situation, MS. Chen's ethical obligation is to communicate the findings to the insured and address the misrepresentation. Transparency and honesty are fundamental principles in claims handling, and insureds have the right to be informed about relevant information that could impact the outcome of their claims. MS. Chen should conduct a thorough investigation, gather evidence, and communicate her findings to the insured in a timely and respectful manner. Adjusting the claim payout to compensate for the misrepresentation may be appropriate depending on the circumstances, but it should be done transparently and in accordance with policy terms. Denying the claim outright without addressing the misrepresentation could result in legal and reputational risks for the insurer. Communicating the findings and addressing the misrepresentation demonstrates professionalism and integrity in claims handling. Question 52. Surplus lines insurance claims evaluation. In Florida, what role does the concurrent causation doctrine play in surplus lines insurance claims evaluation? A. It determines the order of priority when multiple claims arise from the same loss event. B. That allows insurers to deny coverage for losses caused by excluded perils. C. It addresses situations where covered and excluded perils contribute to a single loss. D. It establishes the time frame within which claims must be reported to the insurer. Answer. C. It addresses situations where covered and excluded perils contribute to a single loss. Explanation. In Florida, the concurrent causation doctrine addresses situations where covered and excluded perils contribute to a single loss in surplus lines insurance claims evaluation. Under this doctrine, if a loss results from a combination of covered and excluded perils, coverage may be triggered even if one of the perils is excluded under the policy. This doctrine aims to provide coverage for losses that have both covered and excluded causes, recognizing that it may be challenging to separate the effects of different perils. However, the application of the concurrent causation doctrine can vary depending on the specific policy language and legal interpretations. Question 53. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. When settling a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, what is the significance of obtaining a release of all claims from the insured? A. It prevents the insured from filing future claims related to the same loss event. B. It waives the insurer's obligation to pay the claim. C. It transfers the insured's right to pursue legal action against the insurer. D. It releases the insured from the duty to cooperate with the insurer. Answer A. It prevents the insured from filing future claims related to the same loss event. Explanation. In Florida, obtaining a release of all claims from the insured when settling a surplus lines insurance claim is significant because it prevents the insured from filing future claims related to the same loss event. A release of all claims is a legal document through which the insured relinquishes any right to pursue additional claims or legal action against the insurer arising from the same incident covered by the settlement. This ensures finality and closure of the claim, protecting the insurer from potential future liabilities and disputes. However, it is essential for insurers to ensure that the release is drafted carefully and complies with legal requirements to be enforceable. Question 54. Surplus lines insurance claims litigation scenario-based. Mr. Patel, a surplus lines claims adjuster in Florida, receives notice of a lawsuit filed by an insured against the insurer for alleged unfair claims settlement practices. What steps should Mr. Patel take to respond to the lawsuit? A. Ignore the lawsuit, assuming that surplus lines insurers are immune from such claims. B. Immediately offer a settlement to the insured to resolve the dispute out of court. C. Retain legal counsel to evaluate the allegations and defend the insurer's interests. D. Counterclaim against the insured for filing a frivolous lawsuit. Answer. C. Retain legal counsel to evaluate the allegations and defend the insurer's interests. Explanation. When faced with a lawsuit alleging unfair claims settlement practices in Florida, Mr. Patel should retain legal counsel to evaluate the allegations and defend the insurer's interests. Surplus lines insurers are not immune from claims related to unfair claims settlement practices, and failure to respond to a lawsuit could result in adverse legal consequences. Legal counsel can assess the merits of the lawsuit, develop a strategic defense, and represent the insurer's interests in court. While offering a settlement may be an option, it should be done under the guidance of legal counsel and based on a thorough evaluation of the case. Counterclaiming against the insured without sufficient grounds could further escalate the dispute and should be considered only after careful legal analysis. Retaining legal counsel ensures that the insurer's rights are protected and that the lawsuit is addressed in accordance with applicable laws and regulations. Question 55. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism. In Florida, what ethical considerations should surplus lines claims adjusters prioritize when handling claims involving catastrophes or large-scale disasters? A. Expediency in claims processing to minimize insurers' losses. B. Fairness and equity in assessing and settling claims for all policyholders. C. Limiting communication with insureds to avoid overwhelming them. D. Maximizing claim payouts to enhance insurers' reputation. Answer. B. Fairness and equity in assessing and settling claims for all policyholders. Explanation. When handling claims involving catastrophes or large-scale disasters in Florida, surplus lines claims adjusters should prioritize fairness and equity in assessing and settling claims for all policyholders. These situations often involve significant losses and widespread impact, making it essential for adjusters to treat all policyholders fairly and equitably. Adjusters should focus on accurately evaluating each claim based on the policy terms, coverage, and evidence presented, ensuring that policyholders receive fair compensation for their losses. Expediency in claims processing is important, but it should not compromise fairness or accuracy in claims handling. Effective communication with insureds is also critical to provide support and guidance during challenging times. Question 56. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. In Florida, what factors should surplus lines insurers consider when determining the appropriate amount of a settlement offer for a property damage claim? A. The insured's financial status and ability to pay deductibles. B. The insurer's profitability and financial reserves. C. The extent of damage, repair costs, and policy coverage limits. D. The insured's personal relationship with the claims adjuster. Answer. C. The extent of damage, repair costs, and policy coverage limits. Explanation. When determining the appropriate amount of a settlement offer for a property damage claim in Florida, surplus lines insurers should consider factors such as the extent of damage, repair costs, and policy coverage limits. Assessing the scope of damage and estimating repair costs accurately allows insurers to determine the amount needed to restore the insured property to its pre-loss condition. Policy coverage limits establish the maximum amount the insurer is obligated to pay under the policy, guiding the settlement offer. While the insured's financial status may impact their ability to pay deductibles, it is not directly relevant to determining the settlement amount. Insurer profitability and personal relationships with claims adjusters should not influence settlement offers, as they should be based on objective assessments of the claim. Question 57. Surplus lines insurance claims litigation. In Florida, what are the potential consequences for surplus lines insurers who engage in unfair claims settlement practices? A. Issuance of a warning letter from the Florida Surplus Lines Service Office FLSA. B. Suspension or revocation of the insurer's surplus lines license. C. Mandatory participation in surplus lines insurance education programs. D. Imposition of fines on individual claims adjusters involved in the practices. Answer: B. Suspension or revocation of the insurer's surplus lines license. Explanation: in Florida, surplus lines insurers who engage in unfair claims settlement practices may face the potential consequence of suspension or revocation of their surplus lines license. Unfair claims settlement practices include actions such as failing to promptly investigate claims, refusing to pay valid claims, or offering unreasonably low settlement amounts. The Florida Surplus Lines Service Office (ASO) and the Florida Department of Financial Services regulate surplus lines insurance and have the authority to take disciplinary actions against insurers found to have violated regulations or engaged in unethical conduct. Suspension or revocation of the insurer's license is a serious consequence that can significantly impact its ability to conduct business in the state, while fines or other penalties may also be imposed. The primary regulatory response to unfair claims settlement practices is typically license-related sanctions. Question 58. Surplus lines insurance claims investigation. When conducting an investigation for a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, what factors should surplus lines claims adjusters consider when determining the cause of loss? A. The insured's financial history and credit score. B. The insured's reputation within the industry. C. The circumstances surrounding the loss event and available evidence. D. The insured's relationship with the insurer's agents or representatives. Answer: C. The circumstances surrounding the loss event and available evidence. Explanation: when conducting an investigation for a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, surplus lines claims adjusters should consider the circumstances surrounding the loss event and available evidence to determine the cause of loss. This includes gathering information about the incident, assessing damage, interviewing witnesses if necessary, and reviewing relevant documentation. The focus should be on objectively evaluating the facts and evidence related to the claim to establish the cause of loss accurately. Factors such as the insured's financial history or reputation within the industry are not directly relevant to determining the cause of loss and should not influence the investigation process. Question 59. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. In Florida, what are the key considerations for surplus lines insurers when negotiating a settlement agreement with an insured? A. Maximizing the insurer's profitability and minimizing claim payouts. B. Ensuring compliance with regulatory requirements and policy terms. C. Expediting the settlement process to reduce administrative costs. D. Limiting communication with the insured to avoid disputes. Answer: B. Ensuring compliance with regulatory requirements and policy terms. Explanation: when negotiating a settlement agreement with an insured in Florida, surplus lines insurers should prioritize ensuring compliance with regulatory requirements and policy terms. This includes assessing the insurer's obligations under the policy, evaluating coverage, and determining the appropriate settlement amount based on the facts of the claim. Insurers must also adhere to regulatory guidelines governing claims settlement practices to avoid potential legal and reputational risks. While managing costs and expediting the settlement process are important considerations, they should not take precedence over compliance with regulations and policy terms. Effective communication with the insured and transparency throughout the settlement negotiation process can help facilitate fair and efficient resolution of claims. Question 60. Surplus lines insurance claims evaluation scenario-based. Mr. Thompson, the surplus lines claims adjuster in Florida, is evaluating a claim for property damage caused by a hurricane. The insured has provided estimates for repair costs from several contractors, but the estimates vary significantly. What steps should Mr. Thompson take to assess the reasonableness of the repair estimates? A. Accept the highest repair estimate to ensure comprehensive coverage for the insured. B. Average the repair estimates to determine a fair settlement amount. C. Request additional documentation or clarification from the insured and the contractors. D. Reject all repair estimates and hire an independent appraiser. Answer: C. Request additional documentation or clarification from the insured and the contractors. Explanation: to assess the reasonableness of repair estimates for property damage caused by a hurricane in Florida, Mr. Thompson should request additional documentation or clarification from the insured and the contractors. Significant variations in repair estimates may indicate differences in scope, materials, or labor costs, which need further clarification. By gathering additional information, Mr. Thompson can ensure that the repair estimates accurately reflect the necessary repairs to restore the property to its pre-loss condition. Accepting the highest estimate or averaging the estimates without further inquiry may not align with the actual repair needs and could result in excessive claim payouts. Rejecting all estimates outright could delay the claims process and create unnecessary disputes. Requesting additional documentation or clarification demonstrates diligence and thoroughness in claims handling. Question 61. Surplus lines insurance claims litigation. In Florida, what are the potential consequences for surplus lines insurers if they fail to comply with statutory deadlines for claims handling? A. Issuance of a warning letter from the Florida Department of Financial Services (FDFS). B. Imposition of fines on individual claims adjusters involved in the process. C. Suspension or revocation of the insurer's surplus lines license. D. Requirement to submit a written explanation to the Florida Surplus Lines Service Office (ELA). Answer: C. Suspension or revocation of the insurer's surplus lines license explanation. Failure to comply with statutory deadlines for claims handling in Florida can lead to serious consequences for surplus lines insurers, including suspension or revocation of their surplus lines license. The Florida Department of Financial Services (FDFS) regulates insurance practices in the state and has the authority to take disciplinary actions against insurers found in violation of regulations. Compliance with statutory deadlines is crucial to ensuring timely and fair claims processing, protecting the rights of policyholders, and maintaining the integrity of the insurance market. While warning letters or fines may also be imposed, license suspension or revocation is a more severe penalty that can significantly impact an insurer's ability to operate in the surplus lines market. Question 62. Surplus lines insurance claims evaluation. When evaluating a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, what role does the principle of indemnity play? A. It allows the insurer to deny coverage for claims exceeding the policy limits. B. It ensures that the insured receives compensation equivalent to the value of the insured property before the loss. C. It requires the insured to contribute financially to the settlement of the claim. D. It limits the insurer's liability to actual damages incurred by the insured. Answer: B. It ensures that the insured receives compensation equivalent to the value of the insured property before the loss. Explanation: the principle of indemnity in surplus lines insurance claims evaluation ensures that the insured receives compensation equivalent to the value of the insured property before the loss occurred. This principle aims to restore the insured to the same financial position they were in before the covered loss event without providing a windfall or excessive compensation. Insurers are obligated to indemnify the insured for covered losses up to the policy limits, subject to any deductibles or coinsurance provisions. While the principle of indemnity limits the insurer's liability to actual damages incurred by the insured, it does not require the insured to contribute financially beyond any applicable deductibles or policy provisions. Question 63. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. Scenario-based. MS Rodriguez, a surplus lines claims adjuster in Florida, is negotiating a settlement for a complex liability claim. The insured is eager to resolve the claim quickly and has agreed to accept a lower settlement amount than initially demanded. What ethical considerations should MS Rodriguez keep in mind during the negotiation process? A. Maximizing the insurer's profitability by minimizing the settlement amount. B. Ensuring transparency and fairness in the negotiation process. C. Expediting the settlement to reduce administrative costs for the insurer. D. Limiting communication with the insured to prevent renegotiation of the settlement. Answer: B. Ensuring transparency and fairness in the negotiation process. Explanation: during the negotiation process for a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, MS Rodriguez should prioritize ensuring transparency and fairness. Ethical considerations require claims adjusters to act in good faith, communicate openly with the insured, and negotiate settlements that are fair and equitable for all parties involved. While insurers aim to minimize claim payouts to protect their financial interests, this should not come at the expense of fairness or integrity in the negotiation process. MS Rodriguez should consider all relevant factors, including policy coverage, liability, and damages, when determining the settlement amount. Transparent communication with the insured fosters trust and helps avoid disputes or allegations of bad faith. While expediting the settlement process may be desirable, it should not compromise the fairness or accuracy of the settlement. Question 64. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism. In Florida, what ethical considerations should surplus lines claims adjusters prioritize when handling claims involving insureds who are experiencing financial hardship? A. Prioritizing claims from insureds with higher policy premiums. B. Expediting claim denials to minimize financial losses for the insurer. C. Providing empathy, support, and assistance to insureds in financial distress. D. Requiring insureds to pay higher deductibles to offset financial losses. Answer: C. Providing empathy, support, and assistance to insureds in financial distress. Explanation: when handling claims involving insureds experiencing financial hardship in Florida, surplus lines claims adjusters should prioritize providing empathy, support, and assistance. Ethical considerations require adjusters to treat all insureds with dignity and respect, regardless of their financial circumstances. Insureds facing financial difficulties may be particularly vulnerable and in need of compassionate assistance during the claims process. Adjusters should strive to understand the insured's situation, offer guidance on available options, and facilitate the claims process with sensitivity to their needs. Expediting claim denials or imposing higher deductibles on insureds experiencing financial hardship would exacerbate their situation and violate ethical standards. Prioritizing claims based on policy premiums is discriminatory and inconsistent with ethical claims handling practices. Question 65. Surplus lines insurance claims investigation. When investigating a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, what role does the insured's duty to mitigate damages play? A. It absolves the insured of any responsibility for minimizing losses after the claim event. B. It requires the insured to take reasonable steps to prevent further damage after a covered loss. C. It shifts the burden of proof to the insurer to demonstrate the insured's failure to mitigate damages. D. It allows the insured to recover damages even if they fail to take action to minimize losses. Answer: B. It requires the insured to take reasonable steps to prevent further damage after covered loss. Explanation: in Florida, the insured's duty to mitigate damages in surplus lines insurance claims investigation requires the insured to take reasonable steps to prevent further damage after covered loss occurs. This duty is based on the principle that insureds have a responsibility to minimize losses to the extent possible, even after a claim event has occurred. By taking timely and reasonable actions to mitigate damages, insureds can prevent additional harm and reduce the overall extent of the loss. Failure to mitigate damages could potentially impact the insurer's liability or the amount of damages recoverable by the insured. Insurers may consider the insured's efforts to mitigate damages when evaluating claims and determining appropriate settlements. Question 66. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. When settling a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, what factors should surplus lines insurers consider when determining the adequacy of the settlement amount? A. The insured's willingness to accept a lower settlement amount. B. The insurer's financial interests and profitability. C. The extent of coverage under the insurance policy and applicable legal requirements. D. The insured's reputation within the insurance industry. Answer: C. The extent of coverage under the insurance policy and applicable legal requirements. Explanation: when settling a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, surplus lines insurers should primarily consider the extent of coverage under the insurance policy and applicable legal requirements to determine the adequacy of the settlement amount. This involves assessing the policy terms, coverage limits, exclusions, and any legal obligations imposed by state regulations. The settlement amount should align with the insurer's contractual obligations to the insured and comply with statutory requirements governing claims handling practices. While the insured's willingness to accept a low settlement amount or the insurer's financial interests may influence the negotiation process, they should not override the insurer's obligation to provide fair and equitable settlements based on the policy terms and legal standards. Additionally, the insured's reputation within the insurance industry is not relevant to determining the adequacy of the settlement amount. Question 67. Surplus lines insurance claims evaluation. In Florida, how does the doctrine of subrogation impact surplus lines insurance claims evaluation? A. It allows the insurer to recover claim payments from responsible third parties or insurers. B. It shifts the burden of proof to the insured to demonstrate coverage under the policy. C. It limits the insurer's liability to the insured's deductible amount. D. It determines the priority of coverage when multiple insurance policies apply. Answer A. It allows the insurer to recover claim payments from responsible third parties or insurers. Explanation. In Florida, the doctrine of subrogation allows the insurer to recover claim payments from responsible third parties or insurers. Subrogation arises when the insurer compensates the insured for a covered loss and then seeks reimbursement from parties who may be legally liable for causing the loss. This doctrine enables insurers to mitigate their losses by pursuing recovery from those responsible for the insured's damages. It plays a significant role in claims evaluation as insurers assess the potential for subrogation and take appropriate action to recover claim payments, thereby reducing the financial impact of claims on the insurer. Question 68. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. When settling a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, what is the significance of obtaining a release of liability from the insured? A. It transfers the insured's right to pursue legal action against third parties to the insurer. B. It absolves the insurer of any future obligations related to the claim. C. It prevents the insured from disputing the settlement amount in the future. D. It releases the insured from any further liability related to the claim. Answer. D. It releases the insured from any further liability related to the claim. Explanation. Obtaining a release of liability from the insured when settling a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida is significant because it releases the insured from any further liability related to the claim. A release of liability is a legal document through which the insured relinquishes any claims or rights against the insurer arising from the same incident covered by the settlement. This ensures finality and closure of the claim, protecting the insured from potential future liabilities or disputes related to the same claim event. While the release of liability does not transfer the insured's rights to the insurer or absolve the insurer of future obligations, it provides assurance to both parties that the matter has been resolved and that no further claims will arise from the same incident. Question 69. Surplus lines insurance claims litigation. In Florida, what is the primary purpose of the Excess and Surplus Lines Estamping Office? A. To regulate surplus lines insurance rates and premiums. B. To ensure that surplus lines insurers are financially solvent and compliant with state regulations. C. To facilitate the placement and processing of surplus lines insurance policies. D. To adjudicate disputes between surplus lines insurers and policyholders. Answer. C. To facilitate the placement and processing of surplus lines insurance policies. Explanation. In Florida, the primary purpose of the Excess and Surplus Lines Estamping Office is to facilitate the placement and processing of surplus lines insurance policies. These stamping offices, also known as surplus lines service offices, assist in the collection of surplus lines insurance premium taxes, the filing of surplus lines insurance policies, and the issuance of policies to insureds. They serve as intermediaries between surplus lines insurers, surplus lines agents, and the Florida Department of Financial Services (FDFS), helping to ensure compliance with state regulations and streamline the surplus lines insurance placement process. While surplus lines stamping offices may play a role in regulatory oversight and financial solvency monitoring, their primary function is to facilitate the placement and processing of surplus lines insurance policies in the state. Question 70. Surplus lines insurance claims investigation. In Florida, what steps should surplus lines claims adjusters take when investigating a claim involving suspected insurance fraud? A. Inform the insured about the suspicions and request an explanation. B. Gather evidence and documentation to support the suspicion of fraud. C. Conduct surveillance on the insured to gather additional evidence. D. Refer the suspected fraud to the appropriate authorities for investigation. Answer. B. Gather evidence and documentation to support the suspicion of fraud. Explanation. When investigating a claim involving suspected insurance fraud in Florida, surplus lines claims adjusters should gather evidence and documentation to support the suspicion of fraud. This may include reviewing claim documents, policy information, and any other relevant records. Adjusters should document their findings thoroughly and maintain clear records of the investigation process. While it's important to be vigilant and gather evidence to substantiate suspicions of fraud, adjusters should avoid making accusations without sufficient evidence. Referring suspected fraud to the appropriate authorities for investigation may be necessary if there is substantial evidence to support the suspicion, but adjusters should refrain from confronting the insured directly about the suspicions until the investigation is complete. Question 71. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism. In Florida, how should surplus lines claims adjusters handle conflicts of interest in claims handling? A. Disclose conflicts of interest to the insured and seek their consent. B. Prioritize the insurer's interests over those of the insured to avoid conflicts. C. Avoid disclosing conflicts of interest to prevent undermining the claims process. D. Recuse themselves from handling the claim if a conflict of interest arises. Answer. D. Recuse themselves from handling the claim if a conflict of interest arises. Explanation. In Florida, surplus lines claims adjusters should recuse themselves from handling a claim if a conflict of interest arises. Conflicts of interest occur when adjusters have competing personal or professional interests that may influence their ability to act impartially in the claims handling process. Recusal involves stepping aside from the handling of the claim to avoid any actual or perceived bias. This ensures that claims are handled fairly and in accordance with ethical standards. Disclosing conflicts of interest to the insured and seeking their consent may not adequately address the conflict and could undermine trust in the claims process. Prioritizing the insurer's interests over those of the insured or avoiding disclosure of conflicts of interest are not appropriate responses and may lead to ethical violations. Question 72. Surplus lines insurance claims evaluation. When evaluating a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, how should adjusters assess the applicability of policy exclusions? A. Deny coverage based on policy exclusions without further investigation. B. Seek guidance from the insurer's legal department before assessing exclusions. C. Interpret policy exclusions strictly and narrowly in favor of coverage. D. Review policy language and factual circumstances to determine the applicability of exclusions. Answer. D. Review policy language and factual circumstances to determine the applicability of exclusions. Explanation. When evaluating a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, adjusters should review policy language and factual circumstances to determine the applicability of exclusions. This involves carefully examining the language of the policy to understand the scope and intent of the exclusions. Adjusters should also consider the specific facts and circumstances of the claim to assess whether the conditions triggering the exclusions are met. While exclusions limit coverage under the policy, they should be interpreted in a manner consistent with the insured's reasonable expectations and the purpose of insurance. Denying coverage based solely on policy exclusions without further investigation could result in unfair claims practices. Seeking guidance from the insurer's legal department may be appropriate in complex cases, but adjusters should first conduct a thorough review of the policy and claim details to determine the applicability of exclusions. Question 73. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. In Florida, what factors should surplus lines insurers consider when determining the reasonableness of a settlement offer for a liability claim? A. The insured's financial status and ability to contribute to the settlement amount. B. The insurer's desire to minimize legal expenses and avoid litigation. C. The extent of liability, legal precedent, and potential damages in the case. D. The insured's reputation within the industry and their relationship with the insurer. Answer. C. The extent of liability, legal precedent, and potential damages in the case. Explanation. When determining the reasonableness of a settlement offer for a liability claim in Florida, surplus lines insurers should consider factors such as the extent of liability, legal precedent, and potential damages in the case. This involves assessing the insured's liability exposure based on the facts of the claim, relevant legal standards, and prior court decisions that may establish precedent. Insurers should also evaluate the potential costs of litigation, including attorney fees, court expenses, and the risk of adverse judgments. While the insured's financial status may impact their ability to contribute to a settlement, it should not be the primary factor in determining the reasonableness of the offer. Similarly, while minimizing legal expenses and preserving relationships with insureds are important considerations, they should not overshadow the insurer's obligation to assess liability and damages accurately. Question 74. Surplus lines insurance claims litigation in Florida. What role do reservation of rights letters play in surplus lines insurance claims litigation? A. They serve as notifications to the insured about the insurer's intention to deny coverage. B. They waive the insurer's right to contest coverage issues in future litigation. C. They allow the insurer to maintain coverage defenses while providing a defense to the insured. D. They establish a time frame within which the insured must file a lawsuit against the insurer. Answer. C. They allow the insurer to maintain coverage defenses while providing a defense to the insured. Explanation. In Florida, reservation of rights letters play a crucial role in surplus lines insurance claims litigation by allowing the insurer to maintain coverage defenses while providing a defense to the insured. These letters inform the insured that the insurer is providing a defense under a reservation of rights, meaning that the insurer is reserving its right to deny coverage for certain aspects of the claim. By issuing a reservation of rights letter, the insurer can investigate the claim, provide a defense to the insured, and assert coverage defenses without waiving its right to contest coverage issues in future litigation. This helps protect the insurer's interests while ensuring that the insured receives a defense and representation in the lawsuit. Reservation of rights letters do not waive the insurer's right to contest coverage issues, notify the insured about coverage denials, or establish deadlines for filing lawsuits against the insurer. Question 75. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism. In Florida, how should surplus lines claims adjusters handle confidential information obtained during the claims handling process? A. Share confidential information with third parties to expedite claims processing. B. Use confidential information to gain leverage during settlement negotiations. C. Safeguard confidential information and only disclose it as necessary for claims handling purposes. D. Disclose confidential information to the insured to build trust and rapport. Ensner, C. Safeguard confidential information and only disclose it as necessary for claims handling purposes. Explanation. In Florida, surplus lines claims adjusters should handle confidential information obtained during the claims handling process with utmost care and discretion. It is essential to safeguard confidential information and only disclose it as necessary for legitimate claims handling purposes. This includes protecting sensitive personal and financial information of the insured, as well as proprietary information of the insurer or other parties involved in the claim. Sharing confidential information with third parties without authorization, using it for personal gain, or disclosing it to the insured without a legitimate need violates ethical standards and may lead to legal consequences. Maintaining the confidentiality of information fosters trust and professionalism in the claims handling process, ensuring that sensitive information is protected and used appropriately to resolve claims efficiently and fairly. Question 76. Surplus lines insurance claims evaluation. In Florida, what factors should surplus lines claims adjusters consider when determining the applicability of a concurrent causation doctrine in a property insurance claim? A. The insured's deductible amount and financial history. B. The insurer's financial reserves and profitability. C. The nature of the perils involved and the language of the insurance policy. D. The insured's previous claims history and reputation within the industry. Answer. C. The nature of the perils involved and the language of the insurance policy. Explanation. When determining the applicability of a concurrent causation doctrine in a property insurance claim in Florida, surplus lines claims adjusters should consider the nature of the perils involved and the language of the insurance policy. The concurrent causation doctrine addresses situations where multiple perils contribute to a single loss, and it is crucial to evaluate whether the policy provides coverage for each of the contributing perils. Adjusters should review the policy language, including any anti-concurrent causation clauses or specific provisions related to concurrent causation, to determine how coverage applies in such scenarios. While the insured's deductible amount and financial history may impact the claim process, they are not directly relevant to assessing the applicability of the concurrent causation doctrine. Question 77. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. In Florida, what are the potential consequences for surplus lines insurers who fail to meet their duty of good faith and fair dealing in claims settlement? A. Issuance of a warning letter from the Florida Department of Financial Services. B. Imposition of fines on individual claims adjusters involved in the process. C. Exposure to bad faith claims, punitive damages, and regulatory sanctions. D. Mandatory participation in surplus lines insurance education programs. Answer: C. Exposure to bad faith claims, punitive damages, and regulatory sanctions. Explanation: in Florida, surplus lines insurers who fail to meet their duty of good faith and fair dealing in claims settlement may be exposed to bad faith claims, punitive damages, and regulatory sanctions. The duty of good faith and fair dealing requires insurers to handle claims promptly, fairly, and honestly, and failure to do so may result in legal consequences. Insureds who believe that the insurer acted in bad faith may file lawsuits seeking damages beyond the policy limits, including punitive damages intended to punish the insurer for its conduct. Additionally, regulatory authorities such as the Florida Department of Financial Services may impose sanctions on insurers found to have engaged in unfair or deceptive claims practices. While warning letters or fines may also be issued, the primary concern for insurers is the risk of bad faith claims and associated damages. Question 78. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism. In Florida, how should surplus lines claims adjusters handle conflicts of interest when representing both the insurer and the insured in claims negotiations? A. Prioritize the insurer's interests over those of the insured to avoid conflicts. B. Disclose the conflict of interest to all parties involved and seek their consent. C. Conceal the conflicts of interest to maintain trust and credibility with the insured. D. Recuse themselves from representing both parties and seek independent legal counsel for the insured. Answer: B. Disclose the conflict of interest to all parties involved and seek their consent. Explanation: in Florida, surplus lines claims adjusters should handle conflicts of interest when representing both the insurer and the insured in claims negotiations by disclosing the conflict of interest to all parties involved and seeking their consent. Transparency and disclosure are essential in maintaining trust and credibility with both the insurer and the insured. By informing all parties about the potential conflicts of interest, adjusters allow them to make informed decisions about how to proceed with the claims process. Concealing conflicts of interest or prioritizing one party's interests over the other would undermine the integrity of the claims handling process and may lead to allegations of impropriety. If conflicts of interest cannot be effectively managed, adjusters should consider recusing themselves from representing both parties and advise the insured to seek independent legal counsel for their protection. Question 79. Surplus lines insurance claims investigation. When conducting an investigation for a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, what role does the insured's duty to cooperate play, and how should adjusters address non-compliance with this duty? A. The duty to cooperate requires the insured to provide full cooperation and assistance to the insurer during the claims process. Adjusters should inform the insured of the consequences of non-compliance and may deny or delay the claim if the insured fails to cooperate. B. The duty to cooperate is optional for the insured, and adjusters should not penalize insureds for non-compliance. Adjusters should handle the claim based on available information and seek alternative ways to gather evidence if necessary. C. The duty to cooperate is solely the responsibility of the insured, and adjusters have no obligation to communicate or assist insureds in fulfilling this duty. Adjusters should prioritize the insurer's interests and may deny or delay the claim if the insured fails to cooperate. D. The duty to cooperate requires adjusters to actively assist insureds in fulfilling their obligations under the policy. Adjusters should provide guidance and support to insureds throughout the claims process and may offer incentives for cooperation. Answer: A. The duty to cooperate requires the insured to provide full cooperation and assistance to the insurer during the claims process. Adjusters should inform the insured of the consequences of non-compliance and may deny or delay a claim if the insured fails to cooperate. Explanation: in Florida, the insured has a duty to cooperate with the insurer during the claims process. This duty requires the insured to provide full cooperation and assistance to the insurer in investigating and handling the claim. Adjusters should inform insureds of their duty to cooperate and the potential consequences of non-compliance, such as denial or delay of the claim. Adjusters may also seek to facilitate cooperation by explaining the importance of certain actions or information and providing guidance on how insureds can fulfill their obligations. However, if insureds fail to cooperate despite reasonable efforts from the adjuster, the insurer may have grounds to deny or delay the claim based on the insured's breach of contract. Question 80. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. When negotiating a settlement for a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, what factors should adjusters consider to ensure compliance with fair claims settlement practices? A. Maximizing profitability for the insurer by minimizing claim payouts. B. Balancing the interests of the insured and the insurer to achieve a fair and equitable settlement. C. Expediting the settlement process to reduce administrative costs. D. Limiting communication with the insured to prevent disputes. Answer: B. Balancing the interests of the insured and the insurer to achieve a fair and equitable settlement. Explanation: in Florida, surplus lines claims adjusters must adhere to fair claims settlement practices when negotiating settlements. This includes balancing the interests of the insured and the insurer to achieve a fair and equitable settlement. Adjusters should consider factors such as the policy coverage, the extent of liability, and the insured's damages when determining the appropriate settlement amount. It's essential to prioritize the insured's right to receive fair compensation while also safeguarding the insurer's financial interests. Expediting the settlement process and limiting communication with the insured to prevent disputes are not appropriate practices if they compromise the fairness or integrity of the settlement. Adjusters should engage in open and transparent communication with insureds, address any concerns or questions they may have, and negotiate in good faith to reach a mutually acceptable resolution. Question 81. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism. In Florida, what ethical considerations should surplus lines claims adjusters keep in mind when handling claims involving vulnerable policyholders, such as the elderly or individuals with disabilities? A. Prioritizing the insurer's interests over those of vulnerable policyholders to minimize claim payouts. B. Treating vulnerable policyholders with compassion, dignity, and respect, and ensuring that their rights and interests are protected. C. Expediting claim denials for vulnerable policyholders to reduce administrative costs for the insurer. D. Avoiding communication with vulnerable policyholders to prevent potential disputes or allegations of bad faith. Answer: B. Treating vulnerable policyholders with compassion, dignity, and respect, and ensuring that their rights and interests are protected. Explanation: when handling claims involving vulnerable policyholders in Florida, surplus lines claims adjusters must prioritize treating these individuals with compassion, dignity, and respect. This includes ensuring that their rights and interests are protected throughout the claims process. Vulnerable policyholders, such as the elderly or individuals with disabilities, may face unique challenges or barriers that require additional support and assistance from adjusters. Adjusters should take the time to listen to their concerns, explain the claims process in a clear and understandable manner, and provide any necessary accommodations to facilitate their participation. Prioritizing the insurer's interests over those of vulnerable policyholders, expediting claim denials, or avoiding communication with them are unethical practices that may lead to allegations of bad faith or unfair claims handling. Question 82. Surplus lines insurance claims evaluation. In Florida, what role does the concept of proximate cause play in determining coverage under a surplus lines insurance policy, and how does it differ from concurrent causation? A. Proximate cause determines the primary cause of the loss, while concurrent causation addresses situations where multiple causes contribute simultaneously to the loss. Adjusters should analyze the policy language and factual circumstances to identify the proximate cause of the loss and assess coverage accordingly. B. Proximate cause and concurrent causation are interchangeable terms used to describe the same principle in insurance claims evaluation. Adjusters should focus on identifying any cause that contributes to the loss and assess coverage based on the collective impact of all causes involved. C. Proximate cause refers to the immediate or direct cause of the loss, while concurrent causation considers all causes that contribute to the loss, regardless of their directness or immediacy. Adjusters should prioritize identifying the proximate cause to determine coverage, but also consider any concurrent causes that may affect liability. D. Proximate cause is a term used exclusively in liability claims, while concurrent causation applies to property claims. Adjusters should differentiate between the two concepts based on the type of claim and assess coverage accordingly. Answer: A. Proximate cause determines the primary cause of the loss, while concurrent causation addresses situations where multiple causes contribute simultaneously to the loss. Adjusters should analyze the policy language and factual circumstances to identify the proximate cause of the loss and assess coverage accordingly. Explanation: in Florida, proximate cause refers to the primary or predominant cause of a loss, while concurrent causation addresses scenarios where multiple causes contribute simultaneously to the loss. Adjusters must analyze the policy language and factual circumstances to identify the proximate cause as it determines coverage under the surplus lines insurance policy. Concurrent causation, on the other hand, may complicate the assessment of coverage when multiple causes are involved, requiring adjusters to consider the interaction of various factors in causing the loss. By understanding these concepts, adjusters can accurately evaluate claims and determine coverage based on the proximate cause of the loss. Question 83. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. When negotiating a settlement for a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, how should adjusters handle disputes over valuation and loss assessment? A. Refuse to negotiate further and insist on the insurer's initial valuation to avoid delays in settlement. Adjusters should prioritize the insurer's interests over the insured's objections. B. Seek independent appraisals or evaluations to resolve disputes over valuation objectively and fairly. Adjusters should communicate transparently with the insured and consider alternative methods of dispute resolution if necessary. C. Delay the settlement process until the insured accepts the insurer's valuation without question. Adjusters should avoid discussing valuation issues with the insured to prevent disputes. D. Settle the claim based on a compromise valuation that satisfies both parties, even if it deviates significantly from the insurer's initial assessment. Adjusters should prioritize expediency over accuracy to resolve the dispute promptly. Answer: B. Seek independent appraisals or evaluations to resolve disputes over valuation objectively and fairly. Adjusters should communicate transparently with the insured and consider alternative methods of dispute resolution if necessary. Explanation: in Florida, when disputes arise over valuation and loss assessment in surplus lines insurance claims, the adjusters should seek independent appraisals or evaluations to resolve the issues objectively and fairly. This may involve engaging third-party experts or appraisers to assess the loss independently and provide unbiased opinions on the valuation. Adjusters should communicate transparently with the insured throughout the process, explaining the reasons behind the valuation and addressing any concerns or objections raised by the insured. If disputes persist, adjusters should consider alternative methods of dispute resolution, such as mediation or arbitration, to facilitate a resolution that satisfies both parties. Refusing to negotiate further, delaying the settlement process, or compromising accuracy for expediency may lead to further disputes and undermine the integrity of the claims settlement process. Question 84. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism. In Florida, what ethical considerations should surplus lines claims adjusters keep in mind when handling claims involving third-party claimants? A. Prioritize the insurer's interests over those of third-party claimants to minimize claim payouts and legal expenses. Adjusters should avoid communicating directly with third-party claimants to prevent potential conflicts of interest. B. Treat third-party claimants with fairness, honesty, and respect, and ensure that their rights and interests are protected throughout the claims process. Adjusters should communicate openly and transparently with third-party claimants and address their concerns promptly. C. Expedite claim denials for third-party claimants to minimize administrative costs for the insurer. Adjusters should refrain from providing information or assistance to third-party claimants to avoid potential liability issues. D. Delay the investigation and settlement of third-party claims to discourage claimants from pursuing compensation. Adjusters should prioritize the insurer's interests and avoid engaging with third-party claimants whenever possible. Answer: B. Treat third-party claimants with fairness, honesty, and respect, and ensure that their rights and interests are protected throughout the claims process. Adjusters should communicate openly and transparently with third-party claimants and address their concerns promptly. Explanation: in Florida, surplus lines claims adjusters must adhere to ethical standards when handling claims involving third-party claimants. This includes treating third-party claimants with fairness, honesty, and respect, and ensuring that their rights and interests are protected throughout the claims process. Adjusters should communicate openly and transparently with third-party claimants, providing them with the necessary information and assistance to understand the claims process and their rights. By addressing their concerns promptly and professionally, adjusters can facilitate a fair and equitable resolution of the claim while upholding ethical principles. prioritizing the insurer's interests over those of third-party claimants, expediting claim denials, or delaying the investigation and settlement of third-party claims are unethical practices that may lead to legal and reputational risks for the insurer. Question 85. Surplus lines insurance claims investigation. In Florida, what steps should surplus lines claims adjusters take to handle claims involving suspected fraudulent activities by the insured? A. Deny the claim immediately and notify law enforcement without further investigation. B. Conduct a thorough investigation to gather evidence supporting the suspicion of fraud. C. Inform the insured about the suspicions and request an explanation. D. Delay the investigation until additional evidence of fraud is obtained. Answer. B. Conduct a thorough investigation to gather evidence supporting the suspicion of fraud. Explanation. In Florida, when surplus lines claims adjusters encounter claims involving suspected fraudulent activities by the insured, they should conduct a thorough investigation to gather evidence supporting the suspicion of fraud. This investigation may involve reviewing claim documents, policy information, and any other relevant records. Adjusters should document their findings meticulously and maintain clear records of the investigation process. While it's essential to be vigilant and gather evidence to substantiate suspicions of fraud, adjusters should avoid making accusations without sufficient evidence. Delaying the investigation or denying the claim immediately without further investigation may not be appropriate if there is insufficient evidence to support the suspicion of fraud. Once the investigation is complete, adjusters can take appropriate action, such as denying the claim or referring the suspected fraud to law enforcement authorities if necessary. Question 86. Surplus lines insurance claims settlement. When negotiating a settlement for a surplus lines insurance claim in Florida, what factors should adjusters consider when assessing the reasonableness of a settlement offer? A. The insured's financial status and ability to contribute to the settlement amount. B. The insurer's desire to minimize claim payouts and avoid litigation expenses. C. The extent of liability, potential damages, and legal precedent in similar cases. D. The adjuster's personal opinion on the fairness of the settlement offer. Answer. C. The extent of liability, potential damages, and legal precedent in similar cases. Explanation. In Florida, when negotiating a settlement for a surplus lines insurance claim, adjusters should consider factors such as the extent of liability, potential damages, and legal precedent in similar cases when assessing the reasonableness of a settlement offer. Adjusters should evaluate the insured's liability exposure based on the facts of the claim and relevant legal standards. They should also consider the potential cost of litigation, including attorney fees, court expenses, and the risk of adverse judgments. Legal precedent in similar cases can provide valuable insights into how courts have ruled on comparable claims and may influence the assessment of a reasonable settlement offer. While the insured's financial status may impact their ability to contribute to the settlement, it should not be the sole determinant of the reasonableness of the offer. Similarly, adjusters should prioritize reaching a fair and equitable settlement based on objective factors rather than personal opinions. Question 87. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism. In Florida, what ethical considerations should surplus lines claims adjusters keep in mind when handling claims involving policyholders who have experienced a catastrophic loss? A. Prioritize expediency over accuracy to resolve claims quickly and minimize administrative costs. B. Treat policyholders with empathy, compassion, and respect and provide them with the support and assistance they need during the claims process. C. Delay communication with policyholders to avoid overwhelming them with information during a difficult time. D. Expedite claim denials for policyholders who have experienced catastrophic losses to minimize financial losses for the insurer. Answer. B. Treat policyholders with empathy, compassion, and respect and provide them with the support and assistance they need during the claims process. Explanation. In Florida, surplus lines claims adjusters should prioritize treating policyholders who have experienced catastrophic losses with empathy, compassion, and respect. Adjusters should recognize the emotional and financial impact of catastrophic events on policyholders and provide them with the support and assistance they need during the claims process. This may include offering guidance on filing the claim, explaining coverage and benefits, and addressing any concerns or questions the policyholder may have. Justice should communicate openly and transparently with policyholders, providing them with regular updates on the status of their claim and being responsive to their needs. Expediency is important, but not at the expense of accuracy or fairness in resolving claims. Delaying communication or expediting claim denials for policyholders who have experienced catastrophic losses may exacerbate their distress and undermine trust in the claims process. Adjusters must uphold ethical standards and professionalism while handling claims involving catastrophic losses to ensure policyholders receive the assistance and support they deserve. Question 88. Surplus lines insurance claims evaluation. In Florida, how does the principle of indemnity influence surplus lines insurance claims evaluation, and what role does it play in determining claim settlements? A. The principle of indemnity requires insurers to compensate policyholders for their actual financial losses up to the policy limits. Justice should assess claims based on the insured's actual damages and seek to restore them to the pre-loss financial position without providing windfall gains. B. The principle of indemnity allows insurers to offer settlements that exceed the policy limits to incentivize policyholders to settle their claims promptly. Justice should prioritize maximizing claim payouts to expedite the claims settlement process. C. The principle of indemnity obligates insurers to deny claims that exceed the policy limits to minimize financial losses. Justice should limit claim payouts to the policy limits, regardless of the insured's actual damages. D. The principle of indemnity enables insurers to deny claims that are deemed excessive or unjustified based on subjective criteria. Adjusters should exercise discretion in determining the reasonableness of claim settlements without strict adherence to policy limits. Answer A. The principle of indemnity requires insurers to compensate policyholders for their actual financial losses up to the policy limits. Justice should assess claims based on the insured's actual damages and seek to restore them to the pre-loss financial position without providing windfall gains. Explanation. In Florida, the principle of indemnity requires insurers to compensate policyholders for their actual financial losses up to the policy limits. Justice should evaluate claims based on the insured's actual damages and seek to restore them to the pre-loss financial position without providing windfall gains. This principle aims to prevent policyholders from profiting from insurance claims and ensures that compensation is fair and reasonable. Justice should assess the insured's losses objectively, taking into account factors such as property value, repair costs, and loss of income. While insurers may offer settlements that exceed the policy limits in certain cases, such as catastrophic losses or liability claims, they should do so based on a thorough evaluation of the insured's actual damages and in accordance with contractual obligations. Adherence to the principle of indemnity promotes fairness and integrity in surplus lines insurance claims evaluation and settlement. Question 89. Surplus lines insurance claims litigation. In Florida, what steps should surplus lines insurers take to minimize the risk of bad faith claims during litigation, and how can adjusters contribute to this effort? A. Surplus lines insurers should delay the litigation process to discourage policyholders from pursuing bad faith claims. Justice should avoid communicating with policyholders during litigation to prevent the exchange of potentially incriminating information. B. Surplus lines insurers should provide policyholders with full transparency and cooperation during litigation to demonstrate good faith efforts to resolve disputes. Justice should communicate openly and honestly with policyholders, providing them with timely updates on the status of their claims. C. Surplus lines insurers should engage in aggressive litigation tactics to intimidate policyholders and discourage them from pursuing bad faith claims. Justice should prioritize winning court cases at all costs to protect the insurer's financial interests. D. Surplus lines insurers should offer policyholders settlements that are substantially lower than the policy limits to incentivize them to drop bad faith claims. Justice should refrain from disclosing relevant information to policyholders to avoid strengthening their claims. Answer. B. Surplus lines insurers should provide policyholders with full transparency and cooperation during litigation to demonstrate good faith efforts to resolve disputes. Justice should communicate openly and honestly with policyholders, providing them with timely updates on the status of their claims. Explanation. In Florida, surplus lines insurers should provide policyholders with full transparency and cooperation during litigation to demonstrate good faith efforts to resolve disputes and minimize the risk of bad faith claims. Justice play a crucial role in this effort by communicating openly and honestly with policyholders, providing them with timely updates on the status of their claims and addressing any concerns or questions they may have. By maintaining a collaborative and respectful approach to litigation, insurers can build trust with policyholders and potentially resolve disputes more amicably. Aggressive litigation tactics, delay tactics, or offering low settlements to pressure policyholders into dropping bad faith claims may backfire and increase the likelihood of bad faith allegations. Justice should prioritize fairness and integrity in the claims handling process even during litigation to uphold the insurer's reputation and minimize legal and financial risks. Question 90. Surplus lines insurance claims ethics and professionalism. In Florida, what ethical considerations should surplus lines claims adjusters keep in mind when handling claims involving multiple insureds with conflicting interests? A surplus lines claims adjusters should prioritize the interests of insureds with higher policy limits over those with lower limits to minimize claim payouts for the insurer. Adjusters should avoid disclosing information about other insureds to prevent conflicts of interest. B. Surplus lines claims adjusters should treat all insureds fairly and impartially, regardless of their policy limits or coverage. Adjusters should communicate openly with all parties involved and seek to resolve conflicts or disputes in a fair and equitable manner. C. Surplus lines claims adjusters should favor insureds with stronger legal representation to expedite claims processing and minimize administrative costs. Adjusters should refrain from communicating with insureds directly to prevent potential conflicts of interest. D. Surplus lines claims adjusters should prioritize the insurer's interests over those of the insureds to minimize claim payouts and legal expenses. Adjusters should avoid discussing coverage or settlement options with insureds to prevent conflicts of interest. Answer. B. Surplus lines claims adjusters should treat all insureds fairly and impartially, regardless of their policy limits or coverage. Adjusters should communicate openly with all parties involved and seek to resolve conflicts or disputes in a fair and equitable manner. Explanation. In Florida, surplus lines claims adjusters should treat all insureds fairly and impartially, regardless of their policy limits or coverage, when handling claims involving multiple insureds with conflicting interests. Adjusters must navigate these complex situations with integrity and professionalism, ensuring that each insured's rights and interests are respected. This includes communicating openly with all parties involved, providing them with accurate information about the claims process, and seeking to resolve conflicts or disputes in a fair and equitable manner. Adjusters should avoid favoritism or bias toward insureds with higher policy limits or stronger legal representation, as this may compromise the fairness of the claims handling process and expose the insurer to potential liability. By upholding ethical standards and treating all insureds with respect and impartiality, adjusters can mitigate conflicts of interest and promote trust and confidence in the claims handling process.